The Go Nows is back with more free agency predictions, 1 day away until it all starts. Check out our most recent video. Got a bunch of free agency predictions in there. We're finishing it off here, and then we'll have great videos throughout free agency, a bunch of them. So join us for all that. Let's get to the video. Tre'Von Moehrig, one of my favorite free agents of the entire class. Pretty underrated. Best football is ahead of him. You know, he played a lot more in the box last year, was great there. He can play free safety, though. Haven't heard anything about him, like where he's linked. I haven't heard legit information that is, you know, these are the landing spots. So I'm going to predict him going back to the Raiders. He played so well last year, showed promise under Patrick Graham. I know the staff changed, but Graham is still there. Raiders got to get him back. He has star potential in the right role, you know, at his safety position. I love the fit with the Washington Commanders. Haven't heard anything about it. They could bring Chin back. Maybe Haason, we'll talk about him in a little bit. I just love the fit in Dan Quinn's defense. Some other teams, like I said in the last video, the Bengals are so tough to predict. They need some things. They have cap space now in the future, but they're so focused on their own guys, and they don't really have a grasp fully on how much each of those guys will cost this year and in future years. Are they going to trade Trey Hendrickson? So they're really tough to figure out. They added some safeties last year. They need to get better, though, but I like the fit. Vikings would love the fit in Brian Flores' defense. They might lose their own safety, Bynum, even though it's a different type of safety. And I've heard the Titans have been in on the safety market. Could put the Jags, Panthers in here as well. I like for him to go back to the Raiders. I would like the Raiders to go get him back, I should say. Not a lot of buzz about him right now, even though he is a top free agent. Let's get to all these top corners. Pretty tough to predict because if you get one wrong, it changes all of them. It's going to be a domino effect here. I've been back and forth on the DJ Reed prediction. I do love the fit with the Raiders. Pete Carroll, definitely familiar with DJ Reed from back in the Seattle days. I'm going to go with the Giants. I know for a fact that the Giants are in on multiple of the top corners. Not that they'll add multiple of them, but they're in on pretty much all of them, and I expect them to get one. I've narrowed it down for the Giants between DJ Reed and Byron Murphy. I mean, of course, they possibly could add one of the other ones that I didn't mention yet, but I really think the Giants are going to come away with DJ Reed or Byron Murphy. I was back and forth on those. We're going to talk about Murphy next. I'm going to predict Giants getting DJ Reed here, but I've had the Raiders at one point. The Falcons, there's a Jeff Ulbrich connection, their new defense coordinator. Heard the Packers and the Steelers brought up on some of these corners as well. They are for sure in on the top corners, but I've heard mixed thoughts where they won't pay top. Neither of those teams will pay top dollar for top corners, or maybe they will. It's kind of been split on that. So I'll predict the Giants for DJ Reed. Of course, there could be other teams like the Commanders, the Vikings if they lose Murphy. The corners are pretty tough to predict here, but I do like the teams I have them linked to. It's just narrowing down the prediction. But again, if Reed goes to the Raiders, that's going to change some of my other predictions. So it really creates a big time domino effect. But this is the top corner in free agency, in my opinion. DJ Reed balled out last year, was the best corner, believe it or not, in the Jets last year, at least in my opinion. I think Sauce Gardner better in general, but last year. So Giants look to come away with a top corner. I have them doing so. Byron Murphy, the Vikings playmaking corner, can play outside and inside. Been back and forth between the Vikings and the Giants for my landing spot here. I know for a fact the Giants are in on Byron Murphy, but they're also in on DJ Reed, who is more of the top corner. So maybe if the Giants end up with Murphy, then Reed could end up with the Raiders, and that changes a Adebo prediction and that prediction, this prediction. So the corners are very interesting once free agency starts. But Murphy was so important to the Vikings just because of his ability to play outside and inside. Was a big-time playmaker, getting his hands on the ball. So it's one of those, the Vikings could lose some guys. They might, and they're going to try to add some guys. We had them getting Will Fries yesterday. So, but they can't afford to lose all their guys. I think Murphy might have to be that top guy they bring back. So I'll go with the Vikings here. Really watch for the Giants. I've heard the Packers and the Steelers are in on specifically these top corners. But I've heard from some people they may not want to pay that top dollar, right? Steelers like Joey Porter Jr. They'll eventually have to pay him. It's not that soon. And I've heard the Raiders linked to Murphy as well if they miss out on a couple of other guys. I think they rather have Reed and someone else that we're going to talk about, but they do like Murphy. A lot of teams like Murphy. And of course, he could land with another team I don't have listed here. A lot of teams in on corners right now. Paulson, Adebo of the Saints, young corner, younger than the other top corners, big-time playmaker, is coming off a pretty bad leg injury, but I do like the Raiders. The Raiders kind of keeping things young here. They could go DJ Reed, some connections there with Pete Carroll, DJ Reed. He's the top corner. They have a lot of spending money now and in the future, even with the Geno Smith situation. So they definitely, if they land him, I don't think they're going to get Adebo, but quite a few connections on the defensive side, former Saints guys. Joe Woods, the notable one. Marcus Robertson, the other one. But so I like the connection. I've heard the Saints really want him back, and the Saints love him. They want to keep moving forward with him. They have to clear a lot more space. They're going to do it. It's not going to be ideal. They already restructured Carr. It's not ideal for the future. They're going to do it, and they're going to try to get a deal back. But I keep hearing more and more that he's going to get paid more than most people think. I think he should get paid a lot because he's a very good playmaking corner, and he's way younger than the rest of the bunch. So I'm going to go Raiders. The connection's there, but I have a lot of landing spots for him. Again, if the Giants miss out on DJ, I really think the Giants are ending up with DJ Reed or Byron Murphy. If they don't, for some reason, maybe the Giants for Adebo. The Packers are tough. I have them linked to a lot of these top corners. How much are they willing to spend, though? Probably end up with one of them. Broncos, Sean Payton connection, Giants, Lions if they lose Carlton Davis, who we'll talk about here in a second. Could throw the Vikings in here, the Commanders in here. Commanders already traded for Latimer from the Saints. They're looking for another corner. It'd be a good fit. So many teams for corners right now. Really trying to narrow it down in these videos with these predictions. They're not going to be 100% right. Sometimes I like when I'm wrong because I'm a little more entertained then. If I don't have your team getting someone, your team will get somebody. It's tough to predict. If my goal was to give everybody a free agent, I would miss a lot of them then. So for Adebo, we're going to go with the Raiders. Charvarius Ward. I like the Commanders for him. Haven't heard a ton of that. Haven't heard a ton of the Jets either. I'm personally making those links. I've heard the Steelers and Packers being in on Ward. I would like the fit for the Steelers. The Packers, I wouldn't love it that much because I like Ward in man coverage. He can play zone as well. But his best year was 2 years ago at the Niners. He was outstanding that year. They ran a lot more man than usual that year. The Packers were one of the bottom teams in man coverage last year. They could bring in Ward and that can up their man coverage. Certainly possible. I love the Commanders. They're definitely looking for another corner that can help them now, contend right now, but also be around for some time. I love the fit in Dan Quinn's defense. The Jets, Aaron Glenn likes to run a lot of man coverage, brings in Steve Wilks. We talked about Ward had a stellar season a couple years ago. Steve Wilks was the defense coordinator of the 49ers that year. So that would be a tremendous fit. Haven't actually heard they'll be in on Ward. Can they pay him since they're going to pay Sauce Gardner a bunch of money? That's kind of the knock there. The Steelers and Packers, I have them in on all these guys, but I'm not actually predicting them to land one of these guys, but they very well could. It's a little tricky here. I like the Commanders. Watch for them for one of the top corners. Ward is the one that stands out most for me, but could go for a Reed or a Debo, etc. Carlton Davis, I've been back and forth on my prediction all offseason. Jags or Lions? Lions or Jags? I keep switching it. Right now I'm going to go with the Jags. It's pretty close to 50-50, but I know for a fact they are in on Carlton Davis. And the Lions would like him back, but he was injured for a lot of the year. The Lions have space this year. They don't have a ton of future space, though. They're very thin on future space, so they might be careful with the long-term extension. So do they get outbid by the Jags? A possibility. I'll predict the Jags right now, but every day I feel like I'm flipping that prediction. I've also heard the Vikings being in on Davis if they lose Murphy. So if the Giants get Murphy, for an example, the Vikings got to get another corner. Watch for them to be on Carlton Davis, and I've heard the Packers connected to all these top corners. It's just tough to figure out if they're actually going to win the bidding war for any of them. They very well could. But Jags versus Lions for me, and I've heard the Vikings run out there for Carlton Davis. The Raiders, if they miss out on Reed or Adebo, watch for Carlton Davis. So just crazy with these corners this offseason. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's actually, the free agency class in general is pretty bad. One of the worst we've ever seen. Still going to be entertaining, but the corner class is super strong in free agency. So very excited about it. Asante Samuel Jr., I narrowed it down to two. I think it's Panthers versus Packers, and I'm 50-50 with that. I've been linking Asante Samuel Jr. to the Panthers all offseason. I just love the fit in Ejiro Evero's defense, pairing him with J.C. Horn. You're not going to be able to spend top dollar on the other corner. They could try. So this is kind of that next tier. So I do love that fit. I would watch for the Packers as well, because will they pay top dollar for one of those top tier corners? They could end up with Samuel Jr. So I'd really, and it could be he could end up on a team I didn't list here, but These are the teams I'm mainly watching right now for Asante Samuel Jr. Isaiah Rodgers is a sneaky sleeper corner free agent. Not going to get, not as good and won't get as much money as the previous guys we just talked about. But I've heard of teams being in on him. I like the Buccaneers. They're going to have to add a corner. We'll see if they move on from Jamel Dean. If they keep him, then maybe not here. But a little bit cheaper, solid free agent corner. The Bucs, the Giants, I've heard of being in on Rodgers as well. But you would have to think they come away with one of the top teams. Cowboys could see him going back to the Eagles as well. But kind of a sneaky guy. Maybe can get paid a little bit more than people expect. Mekhi Becton had a breakout year moving to guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, helping them win the Super Bowl. Haven't heard anything about him, like where he possibly can go. So this is just all my kind of just thoughts, gut feeling. I think he could take a little bit less money to stick with the Eagles because it just revived his career or kickstarted his career, got him going. He found a home there, so I think he's pretty happy. So that's just my thinking there. Saints with Kellen Moore, but if it gets to a certain dollar amount, they probably can't pay. I would like to fit with the Jags and the Colts as well. The Colts, if they lose Will Fries, the Jags do need a right guard. Just seems like a scheme fit here. All these teams kind of running a similar blocking scheme. So we'll see what happens with Becton. A little bit up in the air with him. I'm going to say Eagles. Talanoa Hufanga from the 49ers. Remember a couple years ago, all-pro safety, just found the football, was all over the field. Very good, still young, just has major durability concerns. I think Adam Schefter actually said it. The Niners are not likely to get him back. They like Mustafa, who was a rookie last year. So we'll see. I can't completely rule that out. But a few teams that I really like here, and then actually some connections as well. The Texans with D'Amico Ryans, they could use a safety to pair with Kalen Bullock. Could see that. Washington, GM, Adam Peters, background 49ers, they could, instead of getting Chin back, upgrade as long as he stays healthy and get Hufanga. That's definitely a possibility. And the Jets, he was on that defense, under Steve Wilkes a couple years ago as well, and they're going to value safety a little bit more than the past staff did with the Jets. So some interesting teams to watch there for a potential star safety if he stays healthy. Tershawn Wharton, defensive tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs, had a breakout year. I've heard that he is going to get paid a lot more than people think, and it might be an overpay. He's starting to grow on me a little bit, but will he be as good away from Chris Jones? He had one good year, so teams have to be very careful here, but he's solid stop and run and getting after the quarterback. It's going to be a boom or bust free agency signing, and again, watch for him to get paid more than expected. We talked about the top free agent defensive tackle yesterday in yesterday's video, the most recent video, Milton Williams. So that could create, again, a different effect on, if I had the Patriots getting Milton Williams and the Panthers being very much in on him, because I think the Patriots and Panthers would be on the top tier defensive tackle. So therefore, I think the Panthers could get Wharton. But if the Panthers land Milton Williams, maybe watch for the Patriots for Wharton. We could watch the Patriots for a couple of defensive tackles, really. I could see the Bears, the Vikings, Steelers as other teams being in on Wharton, but there could be a surprise team with this guy. I haven't really heard specific teams being linked with Wharton. I just know he's going to get paid a lot more than expected, and he's considered one of the top defensive tackles. Teams that miss on Milton Williams could be in on Wharton. That's what I've heard, so I kind of put all that together and to kind of use those top teams that I've expected to be in on the top tier defensive tackle. So an interesting one to watch. Teams got to be a little cautious. It could be a boom or bust free agent. And then Levi Onwuzurike of the Detroit Lions can kind of be that next tier. If, teams could go for Milton Williams. If they don't hit on him, they can go for Wharton. If they don't hit on him, they can go for Onwuzurike. I happen to have the Patriots landing Milton Williams and Onwuzurike. They might not necessarily add two. I think they end up with one. I do love the fit. Terrell Williams is their new defensive coordinator, a D-line coach of the Lions last year. The Panthers, I think, will be in on him as well. The Bears, Ben Johnson coach offense, but familiar there with the Lions. And then Aaron Glenn has that background as well with the Jets, and then he could very well go back to the Lions. Definitely could see that. But I do love the fit, specifically the fit and connection with the Patriots. Could they land a couple guys, including Onwuzurike? Again, if the Panthers miss on Milton Williams and Wharton, I think they probably get this guy. So interesting to see what happens with these D tackles. Khalil Mack, a little tough to predict right now because things are starting to heat up. At first, it was like, yeah, definitely going back to the Chargers. Now it's watch out for these other teams. Khalil Mack is definitely an overpay candidate. Very, future Hall of Famer, very solid player, still playing pretty good ball at age 34, but coming off a 6-sack season, does have durability concerns. How much do you pay him, for that. 34 years old, it's a little tough. So I'd be very careful with Khalil Mack. I'm going to predict going back to the Chargers. They moved on Joey Bosa. They got to get Mack back and then maybe add somebody young. I haven't heard anything about the Buccaneers, but I would watch the Buccaneers. That seems like a really good fit, a move they would make. I've heard the Commanders. Watch out for the Commanders. They're tough to predict with edge rushers right now because they're in on guys like this and some other ones we'll talk about, but they're also in on trading for Trey Hendrickson. I'd say they're the top landing spot. So if they're focused on that, maybe they don't get these top edge rushers. But if they know that the cost to trade him or, with the compensation and with the contract is too much, maybe they say, forget that, we'll go for Mack or somebody else. So a little tough with the Commanders. They're going to end up with a pass rusher. It's just, for all those reasons, tough to predict. I've heard a reunion with the Bears could happen. I keep hearing that. Does it make sense for the Chicago Bears to bring in a 34-year-old pass rusher that's declining? It doesn't really, with that team, starting with Caleb Williams, built around Caleb Williams, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. I wouldn't love that for them just because I know he's probably going to get overpaid by anybody here. And the Lions, they just cut Zadarius Smith a little bit ago. They could be in on a veteran guy like this. The Lions, a tough team to predict as well. I just haven't heard specific guys being linked to them. There's few teams that are like that, and there's few teams like I'm hearing this guy, that guy. So they're a little tough to predict. They'll come away with some guys. They have cap space this year. They're a little tight in the future, actually. So very tight, actually. So it's a little tough to predict the Lions, but they'll come away with some guys and get better. Dayo Odeyingbo of the Indianapolis Colts, young, long, physical pass rusher, been a little underwhelming, only 5 sacks this year, but has some upside, has the physical traits you look for. Haven't heard any specific teams linked to him, but I've heard, probably you out there as well, that he is going to get paid way more. Like, he's the ultimate guy, going to get paid way more than you think. I've heard 16 million range, which is crazy. That's crazy for a guy that's, physical traits, but been very underwhelming. It's kind of a what if, maybe we get something out of him scenario. So trying to figure out what teams would do that. To me, he's a 4-3 defensive end with the physicality that he has. I'm going to say the Bears. I haven't heard that link, but the Bears right now aren't afraid to really do anything. It feels like trading left and right the last couple of years. Not afraid to spend big money, spend it all. They want to go all in on Caleb Williams right now. And I guess the plus side of Odeyingbo, having the physical traits, being young, he has upside. But so I'll predict the Bears for those reasons. It's really a shot in the dark here. The Commanders probably wouldn't be afraid to do it. Just feels like a Dan Quinn fit. I could see the Packers as well. The Falcons need a pass rusher. The Lions now need a pass rusher. Just seems like really good fits with those defenses. I could see the Cowboys at the same time with Eberflus now, but at the same time, they have to extend Micah Parsons. Again, I can see a mystery team in here because, I haven't heard a specific team. I think some people are talking Commanders. Again, Commanders tough to predict with edge rushers because I think option A is get Trey Hendrickson. If they can't do that, they can turn to Mack, Odeyingbo, guys like that. But, he's one the team's got to be careful. I mean, I heard that 16 million. When the media is coming out and saying this guy's going to get overpaid, that's a little alarming. They're usually optimistic about things. So team's got to be careful with this one, but you do love the physical traits, and he is young. He does have some upside. Chase Young, we'll go Panthers. I've heard them actually linked to him, as well as the Saints really want him back, even though he wasn't that great for them last year, but maybe they want to give it another run, and he's not going to be overly expensive. Chase Young's been very underwhelming. I'd be careful with paying him as well, but I don't think he's going to be super expensive. I was originally going to predict the Bears because they need a pass rusher. He's been paired with Sweat before. Why not again? He's been paired with Dennis Allen before last year. Why not again? So definitely possible, but at the same time, Dennis Allen got a good look at him. He was underwhelming. Maybe it wasn't Dennis Allen's top choice for the Saints last year. They were just thin on cap space. The Bears are not thin on cap space. So this guy shouldn't be at the top of the list. So originally it was to predict the Bears, not anymore for those reasons. I think Panthers versus Saints, maybe versus Bears. I could see the Packers as well for Chase Young, but not a guy that should be super high up on the checklist, I suppose. It's kind of if you miss on some of the other guys. Azeez Ojulari, pass rusher from the Giants, a kind of a high-end rotational guy, but can fill in and start if you need him to. Has kind of spurts where he plays well. I haven't heard anything where he's going to go. I'm just going to go with the Bengals because I know that they were in on him at the trade deadline. They did switch defensive coordinators since then, though. But the Bengals could be looking for a pass rusher. We'll see if they bring Osai back. See if Trey Henderson sticks around, if they move on from him. I'm excited about Myles Murphy's future. I think he does have some upside, but they can land Ojulari. Ojulari's brother is with the Cardinals. If the Cardinals miss out on a Josh Sweat type player, then maybe they get Azeez Ojulari. And the Falcons, I felt that they were in on Ojulari at the trade deadline as well. They did switch defensive coordinators, but they could be in on him again. So could see the Patriots, Titans, Buccaneers. I prefer him as what he is, a 3-4 stand-up, pass rush, edge rusher, 3-4 outside linebacker, I should say. So I'm not going to link him with any of the 4-3 defensive end teams that look for the physicality, but we'll see. Again, a bunch of grade videos grading all the signings will be coming out as free agency goes on, starting on Monday. Probably multiple videos on Monday. But Haason Reddick, disappointing with the Jets, but he also sat out a portion of the season. He has elite seasons in his past. He's tricky. What Reddick are we going to get? I don't know where he's going to go. There's nothing saying that he's going here. It just feels like a Buccaneers move, but like I said, they could end up with Khalil Mack. It just feels like a Buccaneers move to bring in a veteran guy like Reddick. I think he pairs better with a team that blitzes a bit. Because he can actually align in different spots, but mainly off the edge, he can feast off that. I like Todd Bowles' defense for him. Buccaneers. Lions, definitely like the Lions for him as well. They moved on from Zadarius Smith. I would watch out for that. They did sign Marcus Davenport back. Doesn't really change a whole lot. Can't trust him to stay healthy. So just feels like a Buccaneers move, but I can see the Lions as well. Titans have the former Eagles defensive line coach Tracy Rocker on the staff. Cardinals have Jonathan Gannon. Can see that. Falcons, does Jeff Ulbrich like him from his time with the Jets this past year? Maybe not, but we'll see. Interesting one here in Haason Reddick. No clue what he's going to get paid. Chauncey Golston of the Cowboys, a sneaky, under-the-radar, potential upside pass rusher. Kind of broke out a little bit last year. He was playing with Micah Parsons, but I think he's got some upside. I think Dan Quinn's got to know that. So this is an option. Again, like I said, Commanders tough to predict. Do they get one of those more expensive pass rushers while they're focusing on Trey Hendrickson? While they're focusing on Trey Hendrickson, they can get a cheaper one like this. That makes sense to me. The Cowboys could want him back, but they are focused on Micah Parsons right now, even more so after that Myles Garrett extensions. They're going to pay him a lot of money. I can see the Seahawks being kind of a sneaky team, adding another rotation pass rusher here. But Golston's got some upside, a guy to watch out for here as a sneaky free agent. Dan Moore, the Steelers' offensive tackle, been a little underwhelming, but he's got some experience. He could even move to guard if you need him to. Yesterday, in the last video, I predicted Cam Robinson to end up with the Patriots, but I was very close to sending him to the Chiefs, which I thought for most this offseason. So if the Patriots get Robinson, I'm looking at Dan Moore to the Chiefs or maybe Commanders. If the Chiefs do land Cam Robinson like I originally thought, then I'm looking at Patriots versus Commanders for Dan Moore. So he's another guy that could probably going to get paid more than he probably should or people think, but yeah, it does have some upside still, so one to watch here as the offensive tackle class is dwindling down to nothing right now. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Tennessee Titans receiver, very underrated sleeper receiver. Young, he can play a line at any receiver spot. He had 9 touchdowns last year. 9, and that's what the Titans quarterback struggles. I would think the Titans would want him back given he had 9 touchdowns. He played very well for them last year, and they need a receiver. But there are fits that I really, really like. The Panthers actually have the Titans' old receiver coach there, and they need a receiver. They could be on Darius Slayton like we talked yesterday. Steelers have Arthur Smith. They need a receiver. Arthur Smith, very familiar with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and definitely could look at, like I said, could look at a receiver. And then Patriots looking for a receiver. Mike Vrabel on the staff as well. So some connections there with teams that need a receiver. Kind of a 2-for-1 special there. So he's actually an underrated, interesting sleeper free agent to watch. Aaron Jones, another prediction on back and forth. I keep changing it. Vikings, Broncos. I guess certainly could go somewhere else, like the Cowboys, Chargers, whatever. But Vikings, Broncos, I keep going back and forth. I was going to go Broncos, but then it kind of hit me that you just keep hearing the Vikings would like Aaron Jones back, and they were even trying to work out a deal before free agency. So I thought it made a little bit more sense to go with the Vikings here, but I would watch for the Broncos. Sean Payton looking for a running back, but specifically a running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, downfield. He did that pretty well, but not a guy you can play every single down anymore. He's talented enough, but does have some fumble concerns, but the durability is the big question, especially at his age, but even throughout his career. But two teams to really watch for here with one of the top running backs in free agency. More predictions about him back and forth on the quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, is it Vikings or Colts? Of course, it could be. Yeah, I wish we put the Browns and the Steelers in there as well. I've heard those teams are interested, but it sure sounds like Colts versus Vikings. And you have to think, if they're around the same price range, you would think he goes back to the Vikings. He learned a little bit there in a short time there, has great weapons, Kevin O'Connell. So that made me want to predict the Vikings, but the Colts might just tell him, hey, you might be our starter. It almost feels like they're throwing in the towel with Anthony, or at least for a short time, or a year or so, with Anthony Richardson. And it's not a bad situation there. I think Daniel Jones can play a lot better. I think he's better than people think. The Giants, everybody played their worst possible football for the Giants. Drew Lock looked like he wasn't capable of playing the position. I know he's not the best quarterback, but so I'm going to go that the Colts throw a little bit more money at Daniel Jones than the Vikings do. And I'm back and forth in that prediction. This could set off craziness. If Daniel Jones just goes to the Vikings, then I think it's pretty straightforward, like who the Giants are getting and who this team's getting. And but Daniel Jones, who the league thinks higher of, that could be a top 2 free agent quarterback after Sam Darnold, top 3 for some teams, but no lower than that. He kind of, sets what's going to happen in free agency. But I'm going to go with the Colts for right now, which makes things interesting. Aaron Rodgers, could he possibly go to the Vikings? Taking that Brett Favre, the same route, be pretty wild. And things are starting to pick up. Couple things. If the Vikings can't get Daniel Jones back, they might be interested in Rodgers, or maybe Rodgers is higher on that list than Daniel Jones. They want a veteran quarterback short term. McCarthy missed all of last year with an injury. They had to go back in and tweak that injury via surgery. And he's very young, one of the younger quarterbacks in football, so they don't want to rush things there. But at the same time, it's going to be 2 years gone off his contract. But this could happen. If Daniel Jones goes to the Colts, the Vikings could get Aaron Rodgers, and the Giants have been a strong landing spot this whole time, but it's starting to come out more and more that there's just more appealing landing spots. Obviously, the Vikings are way more appealing than the Giants, and even the Steelers. So I'd watch the Steelers as well for Aaron Rodgers, but this could be this big storyline, or at least the most popular storyline of free agency. Do some quick ones here. Andre James has been a longtime center of the Raiders. Well, not super long, but he was recently cut. I like 2 fits for him. Patriots and Giants. Will go Patriots, but could see either one. Brandon Scherff really has a long list of landing spots. I like the Bengals. They need a right guard. Seems like a really solid scheme fit. Bengals, again, moved on from Alex Kappa, so they could look to add. And people are underrating Scherff. Yeah, he doesn't have long left, but he's very solid. One of the better guards available in free agency. Von Miller was released today. He could actually go back to the Bills or some landing spots there, but why not the Eagles? Try to win another Super Bowl. Vic Fangio fit there, connection. Why not? Eagles are going to let Josh Sweat go because he's going to be too expensive, we think. So why not Von Miller for Philadelphia? DJ Jones, he could land on a team that I don't have listed here, but I feel pretty strongly about Steelers or 49ers, a very underrated nose tackle that stops the run at a very high level. He was with the Niners in the past and played very well for them. They are looking to add a couple other guys, maybe Jonathan Allen, even though they play different alignments, but watch out for those teams, mainly the Steelers with DJ Jones. Give me the Titans for Jedrick Wills. I mean, I could see teams like the Commanders, the Patriots, the Chiefs, but the Bill Callahan connection with the Browns, famous offensive line coach. Titans need some more O-line help. Wills was supposed to be this, he was a big-time prospect, dealt with some durability things, but he's still got a lot of upside. I do like the fit there for a team that could use another offensive tackle. Some more fits that kind of make sense to me. Russell Wilson, it all starts with Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers. Those, and even Justin Fields. Those things need to happen first for us to determine where Russell Wilson's going to go. So he might wait a little bit. I think he ends up with the Giants or Steelers. Patrick Jones, a sneaky pass rusher from the Vikings. I like the fit with the Giants. Old defensive line coach Andre Patterson there. I do like to fit with the Lions as well. Lions, again, are tricky to predict with free agency because I just haven't heard anything, but they could be pretty active. Joe Tryon was a first-round pick a pass rusher with some upside. Be a little bit of a different scheme change, but I do like him with the Lions. I'd watch out with a cheaper option there. Joseph Asai could go back with the Bengals. I could see the Colts with Lou Anarumo. I could see the Titans as well. James Daniels, I think teams will be trying to get Will Fries, the Aaron Banks, other guards first, and then James Daniels. Dolphins, Cardinals, Texans are teams that highlight that. Javonte Williams, I just love the fit with the Chiefs. I think he has upside in the right, offense. I think he'd be awesome with the Chiefs. I think he's very underrated. Poona Ford back with the Chargers. I could see the Giants as well. Jordan Whitehead, I like the Falcons. Pair him with Jesse Bates. Brandon Eccles, sleeper corner. Like the Falcons as well. Familiar with Jeff Ulbrich and his scheme. John Bates, young tight end. That's a very solid blocking tight end. Of course, he could go back to the Commanders. Like the Jets, they could use a blocking tight end. They don't really have one. It just seems like a really solid fit. Javon Kinlaw, Lions and Vikings make sense if they miss out on the top defensive tackles. Dre Greenlaw, sounds like maybe not back to the Niners. Could see Packers, Falcons, teams like that. De'Ami Brown could go back to the Commanders or teams that are looking for speed at the receiver position, Titans or Rams. I have the Rams in on Devontae Adams, though. Dylan Radins, guard that hasn't really worked out for the Titans, but has some upside. Vikings and Patriots stand out as fits. Couple backup quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota, the Dolphins, perhaps, and Carson Wentz to the Browns. Heard a little bit of that. So some random predictions here. Not going to get them all right. I actually find it entertaining when I'm surprised. Like, whoa, that guy went there. So I kind of hope we get a bit of that. Cannot wait for some of my favorite videos that we do every year during free agency. Several videos, free agency grades. Signing grades. There'll be a wave of signings, like 10 to 15. I'll make a video grading those, and then we'll go on more signings in the next video with the rest of those, the next signings, the next ones. So a lot of fun. And then we have our draft content as well. So join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Be much appreciated. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.